The door closed behind him. Not loudly, not with thunder, just with the heavy certainty of wood meeting iron, and a young recruit standing inside a Templar chapter house, knowing there was no easy way back. Before him were men who had already given away their names, their property, their comforts, and their wills. They were knights, but also monks. Soldiers, but also servants of a rule. And here begins the question that has followed the Templars for centuries. Was this initiation a solemn religious reception, a brutal secret test, or a story later sharpened into a weapon by enemies who needed the order destroyed? To understand that mystery, we have to begin before the accusations, before the flames, before the legends hardened into certainty. We begin with the quieter image, a candidate asking to be received before the assembled brothers. Not a stage of occult theater. Not yet. Just a threshold. A man entering a brotherhood that demanded everything. The surviving evidence points us first toward discipline, obedience, and religious commitment. But history has a way of changing its shape when fear enters the room. A private ceremony, perfectly ordinary to those inside it, can become sinister when described by outsiders or by frightened men under pressure. Before we venture further into the shadows, take a moment to subscribe, so you never miss a secret that history has tried to forget. And as we begin, leave a comment letting us know where in the world you are watching from tonight. It's a reminder of how far these forgotten echoes can reach. Tonight, we are not chasing the easiest version of the Templar initiation. We are not accepting every dark rumor simply because it sounds compelling. We are stepping carefully into the space between record and legend, where a vow of obedience became one of the most enduring mysteries of the medieval world. Chapter 2. Soldiers who lived like monks. To modern eyes, the Knights Templar can seem almost impossible to hold in a single thought. A knight was supposed to be visible. He was a man of armor, horses, banners, family ambition, and public reputation. His world was built from inheritance, loyalty, courage, and the hard arithmetic of land. A monk, by contrast, was supposed to disappear. He surrendered status, slept under discipline, ate by rule, prayed at fixed hours, and learned to treat personal desire as something dangerous if left ungoverned. The Templars tried to become both. That is the contradiction at the center of their story, and it is worth sitting with it for a moment before entering the darker rooms of accusation and trial. Because the mystery of their initiation did not grow from nowhere. It grew from a real tension that people could see, even if they did not always understand it. These were armed men who lived under religious obedience. They carried swords, but they also submitted to a rule. They trained for violence, yet they were expected to restrain the self that most medieval warriors were trained to glorify. Their life was not simply a knightly career with prayers attached. The order demanded a different kind of identity. A brother did not belong entirely to himself. His body, his movements, his property, his speech, even his pride, were to be folded into the discipline of the community. The Templar ideal was not the wandering hero of romance, seeking glory beneath a bright banner. It was something colder and harder, a man whose courage was no longer personal property. That idea was powerful. It was also unsettling. The medieval world knew monasteries. It knew knights. It even knew men who could be pious and violent in the same lifetime, which was hardly rare. But the Templars institutionalized the paradox. They made it permanent. They turned the armed life into a religious vocation and placed the battlefield inside the logic of obedience. A brother could fight, but not for his own fame. He could possess weapons, but not as symbols of private power. He could ride out in armor, but he was still expected to obey like a monk who had surrendered his will. For the men who joined, this was not meant to feel theatrical. It was meant to feel total. The vows and expectations surrounding a religious order were not decorative. Obedience meant that a man accepted command even when he disliked it. Chastity meant that family lines, marriage alliances, and the ordinary comforts of noble life were closed off. Communal life meant that personal habits were disciplined by shared routine. The rule did not merely regulate behavior. It worked on the soul by attacking the little kingdom of the self. That may sound severe, but severity was part of the point. In a monastery, the surrender of personal will could be understood as a path toward humility. Among the Templars, the same surrender also had a military use. An army of men trained to obey, move together, endure hardship, and suppress private impulse could become formidable. What looked spiritual in one setting could look tactical in another. This is one reason the Templars fascinated people even in their own time. Their discipline gave them credibility. Their reputation for endurance, courage, and order helped turn them into one of the most recognizable military religious institutions of the crusading world. Yet the same qualities that inspired admiration could, under different circumstances, inspire suspicion. A group of armed men who obeyed their own superiors, held their own property, and lived behind internal rules was impressive when trusted. When mistrusted, it became alarming. The initiation, or reception, sat at the entrance to this world. A candidate did not merely join a company of soldiers. He crossed into a structure that asked him to give up the ordinary claims of life. What he had owned could be redirected. What he had wanted could be subordinated. What he had been could be renamed by obedience. The moment mattered because it marked the exchange of one identity for another, and this is where later imagination found such fertile ground. People often misunderstand the mystery of the Templar initiation by beginning with the most lurid accusations and working backward. They picture a hidden ritual first, then assume secrecy must